Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Pride of Nations. I've made my decision, and I did have a couple that said, or one person at least, that said France, which was not necessarily one of the ones that were offered. And then I also had somebody that said Turkey, which was not one of the ones that was mentioned either. I don't, I don't really see the fascination of playing Turkey. And that's not to dump on the person that mentioned it. I mean, I'm sure it is probably interesting, but it just seems to me like it's kind of like a punching bag just sitting there. So I don't know if that's a game that I really or a campaign that I really want to get into. Although this is more this isn't to show, hey, Gilmer can play Pride of Nations, whoop de doo, and and this is more to show the the fun of this game. And so I might start several different campaigns at certain points just because. And another thing that I wanted to also mention is I'm not playing blocks, Hammer of Scots, because I ran into an issue in the game, and I don't know if it's a bug, but Agrippa is working with me. He works with Avalon Digital, and he said he was going to kick it up and see if it was a bug or if it's just something that I don't know how to play. And it was one of those situations at the end of a year where I couldn't continue, and I don't know if it was something I was doing wrong, and I really couldn't find anything to tell me what I was doing wrong. So maybe that's something that needs to be addressed. If I'm doing it wrong, maybe they need to explain it a little better so people as dumb as I am can figure it out. There you go. But anyway, back to Pride of Nations. I'm going to start one with the United States, actually. And I counted up everything, and it looked like the U.S. came in number one barely. But I could be wrong, and don't get mad at me if I am wrong. But you know what? I probably should have read this. I wonder if it'll have it within the game or within the campaign, that same thing. So let's see. F10, F11, F12. No, it just takes a picture. Let's see. So let's go back out. Let's save the turn. And then let's go back out and actually look at it. I guess I could just restart it. I don't know. But it's the 850 campaign, the biggest epic campaign. Well, let's X that out so we can just look at it. Okay, let's read this. The biggest epic campaign covering the entire period between 1815 and 1920, not for the faint of heart. You can win at any time should your prestige, which is what it's called in this game. It's usually called victory points in Asia game, but it's prestige in this game. Should your prestige be much higher than the nearest competitor. The prestige ratio is different for each country, but it's usually, I think, about 3-1 is what I've seen. Starts in early January 1850, goes to early January 1920, 1,680 turns. Great Britain is at the peak of her power, but crises and conflicts within or outside the empire won't be easy to manage. Second players are France and USA, each with good potential for growth and development. The other nations are real challenges. Russia and Japan are backward, non-industrialized nations at the start. Sardinia, Piedmont, and Prussia must succeed their unification first. And I'll be honest, Prussia wants it, and it's not that hard to unify Prussia. And I'm sure Italy's probably the same way. But once you unify Prussia into the German Empire, they become pretty strong. I think they immediately jump up to second or third place behind Great Britain. Let's see. I do want to look at. Let's X out of this and look at options. I want. I don't know what that password is. I don't know if I can. Okay. Anyway, I think that password is for if you play. It is a little loud though. Let me just turn off the music. Or not turn it off, but put it at a level that is actually bearable. But I didn't want to turn off the music completely, and I'm going to turn it on a little bit so that we can hear it. I'll probably get a copyright strike against me because of the music, but since I'm not monetizing these, it doesn't really matter to me. I get a warning, but not really anything else. So I'm going to start with the United States of America. Less than 3/4 of a century after achieving independence from Great Britain, the United States of America has already proven themselves successful at both democracy and territorial expansion. Never had a nation grown so quickly and taken its place in the world so ambitiously. Since the War of 1812 with Britain, the new American nation has enjoyed peace with most major world powers and had kept to its own concerns, buffered from Europe by the breadth of the Atlantic Ocean. On the North American continent, however, things were not so peaceful. Much of the United States' westward expansion and consolidation of new territory came at great cost to the Native American tribes, whose resistance occasionally erupted into open warfare. The American annexation of Texas was welcomed by the Texas government, but opposed by Mexico, resulting in the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1848. Most of all, the American nation was divided internally over the question of slavery. A series of crises over extension of slavery to new territories had already raised tensions between the northern and southern states. Only time would tell whether the United States would survive as one nation. So, that's the United States in a nutshell at 1850. So, the North and the South were already arguing over slavery pretty severely. And I think there was actually a compromise in 1852, which we might actually see. So this first episode is really just going to be kind of familiarizing ourselves with the interface. As you can see, each area, well, not every single one of these is going to have one of these little circles. The circle is a place where you build improvements to the region, and eventually some of these that don't have one will get one as we get more industrialized. So the first things first, let's just go through F1 through F10 and just take a look at that. It's very similar to Ajad games, other Ajad games, but this one is not war based. This is based on running a nation and winning by prestige. And so let's look at, first we have over here, this number 4 is for diplomats. You can use diplomats to send declaration of war, send treaty actions, certain things like that. Yeah, anything a diplomat, everybody knows what diplomats do. So anything a diplomat does, that's what these are for. The next is your national morale. National morale will help or affect greatly how your troops move and fight, and you will want it to remain or maintain at least 100 if possible. And as you can see, the USA is at 96. I don't know why, probably because of the 1846 to 1848 war, and that probably reduced the national morale a little bit, because when you're at war, your national morale drops. So, as you can tell, it's pretty high, but it's not at the ideal 100. And then here are prestige points. And I don't know if you can read that text, but it says prestige is gained each turn by owning locations important to your nation, possessing colonies, gaining the upper hand in international crises, winning battles, and fulfilling national missions. We'll get to that. If no nation achieves the special objectives of the scenario by the end of the game, prestige will be used to determine the winner. In all cases, it will give you the margin of victory, decisive, marginal, etc. variations during the past turn. So we haven't had a turn yet. So everything, all the changes are 0 because we haven't really had anything happen. So this is your ranking meter. It tells you where you are as it relates to everybody else. Since the U.S. is number 6, I guess. It says number 6. But it's kind of in a good spot. I think that it very easily could get up into the top 2 or 3 if everything goes the way you want it to go. So I never really look at that. I really don't. Well, yeah, I guess sometimes I do. So these are your resources, your important resources, I guess is what you would call them, because you got money, which is 300, private capital, 1,400. This is what you use to build private industries. You have coal, which throughout the 1800s and early 1900s, coal was what ran your ships, your battleships and things like that, ships of war, and also your merchant ships. Steel, pretty self-explanatory. Steel was needed in just about every kind of war enterprise, and also in building ships, merchant ships and battleships and warships. Manufactured goods, that's what your armies, I think, are used as supply. Maybe, I'm not sure. Wait a minute. No, that's this. Supplies and ammunition that you can draw from your stockpile using the commerce screen F4 key to help improve the logistics of your forces in the field. So I think what these are used when you build new units. It takes a certain amount of steel, it takes a certain amount of manufactured goods, and it takes a certain amount of officers in conscript companies. Currently, we have 30 officers and 240 conscript companies. Then you have supplies and ammunition. We just said that. Rail pool points. And then riverine points. Which that seems a little weird. You would think that would be kind of like, that would be the train, and this would be like riverboat type looking objects. But that looks like a train, and that looks like military supply to me. I don't know. So also down here, as you can see, I have a couple of units selected, which is very similar to Asia War Games. And you have all these little same things that you have. You know what? I'm going to turn off that music. It's just annoying. Resume game. So anyway, where were we? So as you can see, I think I was looking at one of these. As you can see, you have all of the stances that your military units, because this is a military unit, Department of the East, 4 units, power 100 in Eastern Maryland. And so you have assault, the hold at all costs assault, offensive type buttons, defensive type buttons, and then passive type buttons. And you also have these special orders that you can give them: move by rail, move by riverine, enter structure so when you move a certain amount of turns and you get to the end, you'll enter the structure if you have that selected. Then you have these where you can combine units, split units, promote a leader, synchronize movement. See, these are all in AJOG games. And then you have build fort, build a depot, set an ambush, destroy rail, and then strategically redeployed within 15 days. And actually, I think I am going to use that. Let's see where I want them. I want them. Oh, it doesn't let me do it to there because there are no rail lines. So it said it gave me a little message up here. It said it will be strategically redeployed to this region in 15 days. Which, I mean, I guess I could have used rail, but I don't want to use up my rail. So let's go through the F1 buttons. F1. F1 is where you have your acts of Congress, your decrees, your laws. As you can see, it has certain levels of research, trade, government, society, religion, economy, education. You can read all those. And imperialism rating 3. So I think these are the ratings of the president, Zachary Taylor at the moment. 31st Congress. His administrative rating is 4. And his diplomacy rating is 6. And then you'll have laws that come up in this screen right here. And you'll also have missions that will come up in this. So you always want to look for those every turn. F2 gives you a listing of all your forces, which reminds me I've got several naval type forces that are sitting in areas where they're not supplied. So I'm probably going to need them to move back to port. F3 is where you build your units. As you can tell, we've got the Delaware Valley is a ship, I guess, that we're building. Well, actually, it's 4 ships in it's a squadron. It's a frigate squadron. The USS Delaware, Ohio, Vengeance, and Austin. And it's a wooden screw. These are all wooden screw frigates. F4, this is industry and commerce. And this is a really tough screen. A lot of people have a lot of issues with this screen because it can get pretty intricate. These are all the commercial products that you can produce. So you have, you can read all of them. Rice, fish, fruits, cattle, fruits again, other type fruits. That's tropical fruits. This is just regular fruits. Sugar, preserved food, cotton, tea, coffee, wood, on down the line. And then you have your money, your private capital, rubber, and cereals. Not really sure why rubber and cereals are in there. I don't remember it being like this as being 2 of my 4 important stocks. But you also have filters up here. Inorganic resources and money, organic resources and money, so you can flip back and forth. So this gives you things like steel and things you need, ammunition, iron, minerals, cars, aviation, luxury goods, that type of thing. That all of these things are needed. Just about a lot of them are consumed by our actual citizens, and they help raise national morale. And also, a lot of these are used by our military units, like petroleum, coal. I don't see coal. Oh, here it is. Coal, steel, that type of thing. Textiles. Textiles are used to produce, I think, military units like armies. So you really have a very, very intricate screen here, and it tells you what you start with. Production sites balance, commerce and transactions. So this is the input to our factories. This is the what we sell on the open market. commerce and transaction. Constructions and various, this is what we're building. And then overall balance at the end. So if you take, it's supposed to go this plus this plus this plus this equals this ending. So 300 minus 43 plus 37. And so that's a difference of 6. So you end with 294 money. And so that's how that works. And then down here you have taxes and percentages, corporate tax, excise tax, tariffs, income, maritime tax. As you can see, income taxes is 0%. This is a strategic map. I've never really used this in any of my Asia games. It really doesn't really tell me much. It just tells me, oh, hey, you got a bunch of units here and here and here, but it doesn't really tell me anything else. F6 is your listing of regions, and it gives you all sorts of information in a database type format. Tells you their religion, they're split between Yankee and Confederate or Dixie, and that's very important because at some point the American Civil War will break out, and the ones that are more Dixie than Yankee will kind of push their state to the Dixie side and vice versa. Down here you have contentment, social classes, militantism, education, religions, and ethics. And then it says population needs. So you're trying to make everybody happy, and the way you do that is you have 6 different classes of people in your nation, and you're trying to get them each of these different products to them to make them happy. And if you don't get it to all of them, some of these are going to be unhappy, such as the peasants. Really shouldn't be peasants I guess serviles. I'm not sure if that one of those is supposed to be slaves and the other one is not, but you see you have your aristocrats, which is kind of a misnomer because you really don't have anybody called aristocrats, but I guess you could say the elites, the Rockefellers, the Astors, the Morgans, people like that who basically ran this country back in the 1800s and early 1900s. Then you have the upper class. That's usually your doctors, your lawyers, that type of thing. Middle class is just well-to-do, I guess, shop owners, things like that. Plant managers, people who make pretty decent money, but they're not rich. They're just basically the backbone. One of the backbones, because down here you have the blue collar workers. They really are the backbone. And then you have the peasants and the servants. And the peasants, I guess, would be more lower class people that do menial jobs, and then serviles would be slaves. I would think. I'm not positive, but don't quote me on that, but that's what I think it is. But you got to keep them all happy. Obviously, some you have to keep more happy than others because some of these, you don't have a lot of aristocrats, and you have a little more of the upper class, but then a little more of the middle class, and then a little bit more of the blue collar, that type of thing. So you got to keep them all happy. This is the research screen. And you have, I hear somebody out there talking. You have all of these that this is filled have been researched. So then you get, wait a minute. Maybe not. Or maybe as soon as I start up, these will show. See, because they all say 100%. 100%. So, I think as soon as you run a few turns, there will be some that you can put research into. Because everything builds kind of the way it would in a normal nation, I guess. Especially for things like military type weapons. You go from muskets to rifled barrel weapons to repeaters. When you have repeaters, I'm talking about, you've seen in the Western where they got they cock it. It's like they can have 6 or 7 bullets in it and shoot it one right after the other in the old Westerns. But before those things, they had muskets that they had to load by putting in the gunpowder, putting in some cotton or something, and then putting in the bullet, and then with a plunger type thing they would tap it all down to get it just right, and then they would shoot it, and it took forever. So the repeating rifles was a big boost over having muskets, and that is actually one of the reasons why the North beat the South in the Civil War, is because the North had a lot more repeating type rifles, better technology, that type of thing. So this is where you research. And as you can tell, every single one of these, it says over here to the right, it says Discovery 100% early railroad. So I think that comes up later. We'll check that after the first turn. Ministry of Colonial Affairs, F8. Sometimes these buttons don't want to. Here we go. Ministry of Colonial Affairs. Interest in alerts. So basically what this is where you have spheres of influence where you can start colonizing. And the U.S. is represented by, I think, these dark kind of grayish blue. And so we have something over here. I think that's where Liberia might be, or something along those lines. But the U.S. has interest in this area of Africa. So that's where the colonial interest is going to be. And they also have interest in colonies out here as well. American influenced territory, Hawaii. American influenced territory, that's French influence to territory. But as you can see, the U.S. did influence some of these, and so it's kind of an overview on colonization. Colonization is pretty difficult to explain without actually showing you. But as you can see, we have colonial penetration. The higher the penetration, the more control you have over the area, and eventually you can actually make a state out of it and gain prestige. So as you can see, your rank in colonial matters and the gain of prestige resulting from it, 2. Upkeep in state funds for your colonies, 6 pounds, because everything's run by pounds for some reason. I don't know why it's just money units, but I guess it's just pounds. I don't know. F9. This is the diplomacy screen. So if you have a treaty in effect, which we do, if you look at any of these treaties, supply right given, indefinite duration, you have given the target nation the right to supply ships in your harbors, and combined with passage right to supply his land units when on your soil, you can't cancel this treaty, this entry. If this entry is a war involving your nation, select the opposing nation, then ask for peace. So treaty to reply to, treaty sent, treaty available. So I can select any of these and send a diplomat, one of these 4 up here that we talked about earlier, to any other nation. And I can ask this, any of these, and I think you have to be in a crisis mode before you can actually declare war. So I'm not sure if we see that screen here. I don't guess we do see the crisis screen. But as you can see, this is us on this side, and they have Argentina, which is probably the first alphabetically. And Argentina is governed by Juan Manuel de Rosas. And as you can see, he has ratings of 8, 5, and 4, and we have ratings of 3, 4, and 6. That all comes into play when you're trying to make treaties with other nations. F9, F10. So this is a victory screen, and you're probably pretty familiar with it. And we have our objectives on here. One of them is North Texas. It shows right now that it is uncontrolled really by anybody. And then we have Front Range and Big Bend, and these are controlled by Indians, Native American tribes or Native American nations. And we have prisoners taken in our losses. Tells us how long the scenario will last. Our capital is Washington, District of Columbia, and it has a top 10, well, 9 because we're one of the 10, but they have the top 10 nations listed under here, and what their national morale is, what their what does it say? Total prestige points your opponents have. This is where I look at this. I don't really look at it this. I look at it over here. So I don't think it lists us though, but we know we have 600. So 600. I don't know if we can. Well, anyway, these aren't in order this way. Gain prestige. This is how much prestige they're getting per turn. And I'm not really sure how much prestige we're getting per turn. And then combat power. In combat power, we've talked about this in Asia games. The nation you're playing is the baseline, is 100%. So if you look at this, Great Britain has an army that is over 2 times the size of our army. Their naval power is 5.75 times larger than our naval power. France is next. They have that's not France, is it? It's Russia. Sorry. Russia has a much bigger land army than Great Britain. They have 2.45 times our land capacity, and then naval power 213. That's almost more than twice our naval power. And you go down the line, you have to go all the way down to China and Sardinia, Piedmont to really get to a point where it's somebody that doesn't have a better land army than us. Even Prussia, small Prussia, has a better land army than us. But that's one of our goals, is to kind of build our army. This is another of the economic screens, and what it does is it lists our current industry factories. So in Maine, we have a factory or industry creating wood logs for us, or cutting down trees for us. Another one, wood logs. And the margin is how much it makes per turn for us. So this one's running at a negative 18. It's losing money for us. But it's a Massachusetts shipyard, and it gains us 2 prestige a turn. So sometimes we let it go, even though it's not making any money. If it's producing stuff for us that we really need, such as prestige, we just have to make a determination as to, is it worth it? And the top line is the input to create, and then the bottom line is what it outputs. So this Colt Guns Arms in Connecticut, we're putting in 8 capital, 3 coal, 3 minerals, 3 iron, and it produces 1 steel, 1 supply, and 1 ammunition, and it's running a margin of negative 16. And how they figure that out, how they figure it's making a negative 16, is they take the cost of all this and they add it up, and then they take the cost of all these, what the selling price is on the market, what the best price we can get based on the market penetration that we have in the nation, in the world, and they compare the two. And so we can't sell these for more than we're paying for these is basically what's going on. And most of them are running a profit, but some of them obviously are not. But sometimes you have to accept that. Delaware shipping, so all this goes into it, all this comes out. Pennsylvania linen, a textile manufacturer, all this goes in, and then you get 5 textile coming out. So 5 textile sells for more than all this put together. And so at times you will run into a situation where you want to actually turn off something that's not making money. And the reason you do that is because you might get to a point where you're losing money and you're going into the negative in money. This up here. So you have to kind of play around with it, It's almost like a game within the game to play around with the economy that's in Pride of Nations. So this is a screen you can spend a lot of time on, because how you get these factories is you go and you can change the input to the output. This time it's showing the output, but then you show the input, output, input. It doesn't look like it changes anything, but regardless, we're gonna stop looking at that. So how you build a factory is you go into one of these screens and see, this is Maryland Tobacco Field. You want to come up here and actually, I'm not sure, it says Alt F2. So it is in the economic sub mode. And then we go to the, this is where you build things. So I can build that right there because I've got it selected, and anywhere there's green I can build. Oh, that's how you do that. That's right. So see this, where was that? See this? I could build a fort there. I don't know. I think it has to gain a city or something before you can actually build industry there. But if you go down the list, I can build an Anchorage upgrade, coaling station in the areas that are green on each one of them. Some of them are yellow, and that's because it takes up probably too much of your money or your steel or your manufactured goods. So if we compare this to our total money, which is 300, we've got that 42 of steel. We only have 30 of steel, and that's why that's yellow. That's why that one is yellow. We couldn't build it until we get 42 steel, and then 105 in manufactured goods, and that's that, where we don't have enough of those either. But here we need 52 money, 10 steel, and 21 manufactured goods. So we cover all that. So we have green spots, green places where we can build those. And it goes all the way across forts, railroad, depots, depot extensions, exploitation and collection center. That's a place where all your goods that you use in manufacturing can be collected. Cereal farms, rice paddies, fruits, vineyards. So you can see this game is very detailed on the economy side. These are all the things you can build, and you want to match up the industry with the resources that you have. So as you can see, this region has coal, 5 coal. So you would want to build a coal mine there, wherever those are. I don't see them. Here we go. coal extraction. So it's basically a mine. Coal extraction, you would put it here because that's where your resource, that's where your coal is. And you'd do it for any one of these. Iron extraction, you'd put it where you have iron. Minerals, nitrates, which are used in, I think, explosives and other things. Dyes, that is for textiles because you dye your clothes. Gems, gold. Gems and gold make money. I think they're mostly just a money maker in this time period. And then you have shops that you can build as well. And those take the raw material that you're extracting, mostly from the ground, and using those materials to actually manufacture something. So you can build these basically everywhere if you have the resources to build them. So that's that. We did that. We did this. And then I just took a couple more screenshots. So this is the button you want. This tells you what is in the region. So as you can see, it has one thing, and it's a Raleigh tobacco farm. And then you can click this, and it tells you what you might be able to build there. Like I could build a pre-industrial fort there in Raleigh. So that does that. Then you have this one. This clicks into different modes. You can click into colonial mode, and colonial mode will have a bunch of decisions down here that you can use in colonies and prospective colonies. Then you have what mode is this? I'm not really sure. Decision mode. This is where you have decisions. And this is a first turn, so we don't have any decisions yet. The next one is going to be military mode. And then this will show you all your military units on the map. And then the next one is going to be economic mode. And it basically shows you where you have raw materials in each of your regions. So that's basically it. The battles are very similar to the other games. If two belligerent nations have a military unit that enter the same region and they're both active and looking to battle, then they will probably battle. If one's passive, they'll run die checks or whatever they call it to determine if the one that's passive actually evades combat. So that type of thing. So that is the first episode, and I'm sure I missed something. I did miss all these down here. As you can see, that is kind of the military control. And I think right now what this is telling me is that these loyalty Americans, I'm not really sure why, unless it's something to do with Confederates or Dixie and Yankee. I think that might be it, because I think some of these states are already going to Dixie. So I'll go through these next time. Trade states or trade status, trade area, colonial penetration. There are a lot of different layers. Supply filter, objectives, nationality and population, allegiance, administrative areas, weather zones, current weather, regions of your nation, national and claimed regions. It's very, very detailed. And a lot of this you'll not probably look at that much if you play the game. But then there are some things, it's kind of like that 20-80 rule. 80% of these things you'll probably pay 20% of your time to. And then 20% of it you'll probably use 80% of your time managing. Because there's certain things that you're going to want to do every turn, and then there's certain things that you're going to just let kind of go for several turns without checking on them. So anyway, that is the first episode of my grand campaign. Then that very next turn, or the very next episode, we'll start running a few turns, and you'll see how fast the turns run on these games. This game runs fairly slow, but my computer can handle it to a certain extent. So the turns don't really take that much time, especially early in the campaign. So anyway, let me know what you think, and I'll be back soon. Thanks a lot.